November 14th, 2023 meeting of the Richmond Sanitary District Board of Commissioners is called to order. The first item of business is to receive quotes for digital LED electronic message center. Received 3.
The first quote is from Sign Connection of Centerville, Ohio. Okay, this is for the cost to supply, furnish, and install a new sign and brick piers. $41,288.20. Price is firm for 90 days. Delivery estimates 10 weeks.
So this is signage down at the admin building?
Yes. Mount Liberty Avenue. The next quote is from Tri-State Signs of Hamilton, Ohio. Price is $41,227. Next quote is from A Plus Signs, Richmond, Indiana. Their quote is for $41,500.
We will refer those to management for recommendation at a later meeting. Thanking everyone who submitted quote. And the next item of business is to receive quotes for printing for the district beginning in 2024.
There are two quotes. First one is from CPS of Connorsville, Indiana.
That breaks it down.
Okay, so there's 4 items. This is for statement paper, 25,000, 8.5 by 11, perforated paper with additional color and 2-sided, $1,490. The next is for 25,000 of number 10 white window envelopes with black ink with pre-printed bulk mail permit information, cross-seamed, $1,185. Next is 25,000 of number 9 white regular envelope and black ink. Their quote is $997.50. And the next is for 7,000 number 10 white window envelopes with black ink and cross-seamed, $407.40. Total quote, $4,079.90. Next quote is from Friends Office of Defiance, Ohio. This is for the first item is the 25,000 8.5 by 11 perforated paper with additional color and two-sided, $1,390. Then the next is 25,000 number 10 white window envelopes with black ink and pre-printed bulk mail. Permit information, cross-seamed, $1,450. 25,000 number 9 white regular envelope with black ink, $1,310. And 7,000 number 10 white window envelope with black ink and cross-seamed, $455. Total quote, $4,605.
And again, we will thank those who submitted a quote and refer those to management for a recommendation at a later meeting. The next item of business is to receive quotes for the purchase and installation of Boss Model VEX 8000 salt spreader.
First quote is from Flory Landscaping of Greenville, Ohio. Quote is for $8,393. Next quote is from Hoosier Battery of Richmond, Indiana. Quote is for $7,560.
And those two will be referred to management for a recommendation at a later meeting. The next item of business is to receive quotes for the purchase of a 2023 or newer Ford Escape SUV with trade-in.
First quote is from Wetzel Auto of Richmond, Indiana. This is for a 2024 Ford Escape. Delivery time 60 to 120 days. Price for the new vehicle is $33,975. The trade-in vehicle is a 2014 Ford Explorer XLT. Trade-in allowance is $8,000. For a total price after trade-in of $25,975.
Did they do local preference? Did they fill out local preference on that?
They checked the box.
They didn't do did they do the form?
This is Indiana local preference being submitted? They checked yes. Yeah, the form is here as well filled out.
Yeah, sorry about that. The next quote is from Cronin Toyota. This again is for a 2024 Ford Escape. Total price new, $34,375, with a trade-in allowance of $7,000. Total price after trade-in, $27,660. And I don't see a preference.
Thank you. So we will receive the recommendations at a later meeting on all of those quotes. The next item of business is approval of board minutes from October 24th of 2023.
President Miller,
Yes, Mr. Bakshi.
motion for approval of board minutes from October 24th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the board minutes from October 24th, 2023 as presented. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item of business is approval of invoices from check dates October 20th, 27th, and November 3rd of 2023.
President Miller,
Yes, Mr. Steens.
make a motion to approve invoices for check date run October 20th and 27th and November 3rd of 2023, totaling $517,150.03. There were some significant invoices, 3 from Co-Alliance Cooperative for $20,748.25, $10,951.19, $27,318.92, and I guess there was a fourth one of $38,281.85. There were 3 invoices from the WUR Solid Waste District Management of $12,351.32, $14,406.68, and $12,954.49. Mixel Excavating, $12,100. Southeastern Equipment, $80,200. 2 payments to, probably came from 2 different accounts, to the Wayne County government of $10,199.78 and $10,199.77. To also 2 payments to Cooley Contracting LLC. First one for $21,659.65 and $32,117.85. And Merrill Brothers, Inc., $73,997.34.
Aye, second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve invoices from check dates October 20th, 27th, and November 3rd of 2023 totaling $517,150.03. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to the director's report.
Yes, Madam President and Board. Before I get into the October report that's before you, I just want to make a note that the district was awarded a grant from the Wayne County Foundation. And this grant was to cover the cost, 100% of the cost of a waste audit. That waste audit, we've discussed multiple times now at these meetings that we're looking to do that recycle program and update that. And this waste audit is going through trash for every route that we run for our trash routes. It's sorting through it, and they're breaking that down into 16 different categories by ton, per route, and per the category, and it'll help us kind of just have that data to apply for other grants and to make those decisions on this, on what we're going to do with this recycling process. The staff is actually in Cincinnati today for the MRF to do that audit, so it was a really quick turnaround once that came in for us to get down there and do that. So Rumpke is performing that for us. And Rumpke, as you know, holds our current contract for recycling material, so it was giving us an apples to apples on what program we currently have. So beyond that, before you is the October report. I don't have a whole lot to note on here. I will make a comment under the treatment plant. We're still under drought conditions. If you look at that daily average flow, it is at 3.56 million gallons per day, which sounds like a lot, but in my 14 years with the district, this value is typically yearly and monthly close to 11. So for several months in a row now, we've been around this 4, so below half flow. And that's really been this case since about June, so a much different year than typical. I do not have much else to go through on the individual sections here. The landfill did pass both a landfill and a compost inspection satisfactorily in that month. And then if we're looking at the budget side of this report, the next thing on our agenda is to talk about some budget transfers. So you can see fuel cost in here if anybody wanted to look. Obviously, that's is what these transfers are going to go over, and that are the accounts that end in 2210. Vehicle operation and maintenance, those are our fuel accounts. So if you were tracking across those, you will see that those are spent at this point, or several of those will be spent as you go down through the whole list there. Overall, though, the budget is tracking as we anticipated. If there's any good news, as fuel, we were under budgeted slightly, as you'll see from these transfers, but overall, the revenue source is up about 2% in the user fee section of wastewater and in the landfill. So where we budgeted there, trying to estimate that. So overall, it's still running to be a balanced budget. And that's all I have on the director's report, unless there are questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much. The next item of business is, as you mentioned, the recommendation to approve the budget transfers.
Yes, Madam President and Board. As a Director of Sanitation, I have the authority to sign and send for consideration to finance budget transfers from one account to another within sanitation's budget, so long as the accounts are in the same type. And by type, I mean that a transfer could occur between two or more, like 1,000 accounts, so accounts that end in a 1,000 number, or into 2,000s and so on. But only the board has the authority to sign these transfer slips if I'm moving between types. So if I wanted to move money from a 2,000 to 3,000 or something of that nature, it would require your signature. The reason I'm kind of bringing it up today is this isn't something we do very often, so just kind of reminding of this process and have these before you. But all of these are for fuel-related pieces, so I'm moving funds from accounts into like accounts within a fund to the fuel account there. And I have in detail on the back, and I can read through these just briefly, which funds I am pulling from or which accounts to transfer in to cover this fuel. So in our 6601 account, which is the solid waste garage, solid waste obviously is the largest fleet, and our sewer maintenance, which has the vac truck and those equipment, is also 50% out of this fund of 6601. So almost all of our heavy equipment is coming from fuel from here. So I'm moving funds from the 6601, 0505, 505, 4490, which is a capital account. There were a few items in this account that were not purchased this year, such as storage for the front lobby, and front lobby modifications, the drive-through at the administration building. These are kind of put on hold as we evaluate long-term plans in more depth. There were also funds in there for camera truck upgrade. That upgrade was done differently and are being looked at for different choices. So those funds are unused as of right now. They can be moved for fuel or portion of those funds. 6601, 0506, 301, 3990. The funds I'm pulling here were actually they were over budgeted funds for that transfer that takes place between solid waste to the landfill for waste brought there. When we budgeted last year for this year, we were anticipating that rate increase and adjustment coming in, and we weren't sure when that would happen. And since it happened a little later, that wasn't all the way in place. So there were funds there that were unused. So being moved across. And lastly, the 6601, 0506, 505, 4490. This is also a capital fund. There were just some things that were not getting done, going to get done in this year. Primarily, this came from, we buy in this account the containers that we use for the solid waste, and this includes roll-offs, 3-yard bins, the Richies, Rosies. The amount we buy per year has to do with the inventory from the previous year. And even though the contract's written for an up to max amount, it's just this year we did not need that max amount, so there were some funds left over there. In the 6201 fund, the sewer fund, we're pulling from one account, the 6201-0505, 505-4415. This fund is for sewer maintenance capital. Capital from sewer maintenance is split with 6601. During the 2023 budget process, the formula did not catch the split correctly, so it didn't completely 50/50 it for some reason. So there were some over-budgeted funds in this account, which is the same as kind of as explained in the 4490 above in item 1. So that is covering that. And then moving to the landfill, which is the 2221 fund, the 2221 0503 301 3120 account. There were $5,000 set aside in this. I'm only using a portion of it, but $5,000 was set aside for some miscellaneous software repair updates. All of these were not fortunately needed for this year. Particularly, it was kind of laid aside for the ILS, the billing software out there, and the scale software, and that has not, it is done well for us, and we didn't need that full amount. So partially there. And lastly, the 2221 0503 505 4490. This is a capital account as well. There were some things from the split from the admin building that we've already touched on in 6601 that were not being used or being looked at differently, as well as the bigger one here is there was a new scale house plan for the landfill, but we ran into difficulties this year in getting anyone to spec or look at what it would take to replace it. And again, that would be a custom build between our scales and all that. So at this point, we chose to repair the existing building and reevaluate longer-term replacement in the future. So these are the funds we've identified to move towards fuel. If there are any other questions, though, feel free to ask.
A question.
Mm-hmm.
On the forms that you attached, the Form 100s,
Yes.
it says reason for transfer, and it says it will not increase the 2020 budget. Is that a?
We changed that. We noticed that was just a thing. So the form comes from the city, and that was kind of the year that I guess it was done. So that's automatically in there. I don't even type that in. It's just built into the forms, but we did correct that for the one that you will sign.
Okay.
Also, you'll notice on that form, there's not a board signature line.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with the deputy controller in finance, and she said, there isn't a special form for the board thing, so just to add your signatures to this, to the existing form.
So similarly, when it says no board action required, because it
Correct.
is outside of the forms, it does require board
Correct.
action. So we have, are there three Form 100s?
Correct. That's
You-
one for each of the three funds.
The three
that will need
funds.
That will need fuel, 6601, 6201, and 2220.
Should we approve all three at one time, or do we need to do each one separately?
I think you can approve them all in one summary motion as long as there's no questions about an individual particular transfer.
Okay. Questions, comments, or does someone want to endeavor to make a motion of one or three of them?
I'll do one blanket one.
Okay.
President Miller,
Yes, Mr. Bakshi?
motion for recommendation to approve the budget transfers as presented.
It works for me. Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the budget transfers as presented. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I know that's a lot of hard work to go through and make that all work.
It is, and we're cognizant as well as what we budgeted for fuel next year. It's just one of those volatile pieces. That contract goes out late in the year, so we don't really know what the value is going to come in. And it's my understanding that it's kind of a tiered contract that kind of depends on volume of fuel used by the city. So obviously, it's a broad spectrum beyond the sanitary district. So guessing that number is difficult, so.
Well, we were driving across the state this weekend, and there's a 50-cent a gallon swing as you travel across the state, so it's pretty hard. The next item of business is we are tabling items 9 and 10, the purchase of trucks. Those will be delayed until a later meeting. And then that takes us to item 11, which is the recommendation to approve addendum number 1 to contract 117-2023 with Donald R. Fry and Company.
Yes, Madam President and Board, this is in regards to our liens that we process for unpaid, uncollected sewer bills. I provided kind of a rough table of how much, just to give you an idea of how much we've collected, how much we've liened, how much is uncollected of our liens. It's a big process, and when we started with Cubic, our billing software that Donald R. Fry and Company does for us, the lien part wasn't something that was an easy process. We kind of built it to our own, where we would have some things that were, like, for example, we'd have adjustments, and auditors would look at it, but they'd have to read through notes. It wasn't a great process that we were using. It's worked, we've made it do, it's a lot of work as far as each step. So Fry worked with numerous municipalities on how to develop a module for liens. And this will do everything from, not to get in depth, but it builds our rate code specific to put liens where when we collect a lien, which is only twice a year from the county, we had a problem with a homeowner maybe selling their home. We have a lien, they placed it, or they paid it, and we need to note the account it's been paid, so we'd have to do an adjustment. Well, this actually allows us a module that will move money out. It will hold till we actually do our settlements twice a year. It prepares letters. It allows us to run reports, which we had no means to do prior. It has a multitude of things that will help us immensely. It is $7,693 for the module, and then they'll do support and our license on it for $1,530.60. So altogether, it's $9,231.60. And of course, this is sole source to our software.
You gave us a lot of information. And always, I appreciate you and everyone on the staff of going down the whole path of doing our own billings, because I remember way back when we didn't, and it was not our job to do the billings, and how well you have taken it on and have embraced the task, as well as making certain that we were within whatever the state requires as far as when we can place liens and how that whole process works. So this is not mechanized from the standpoint that the computer's automatically targeting somebody for a lien, is it? And then sending it. You still will have the human look to say, oh, yes, this one needs to have a lien placed or not.
And liens aren't our first alternative, of course, but it will allow us to run, and that's a great point, because right now, there is one of the staff members that physically takes 2 other reports that Diana creates, and she has to physically go through every account to see where we're at. Do we want a lien? Is there an option to shut off if it hasn't been shut off? There's a lot of small details to it, but this will create a report that takes out those other 2 steps that allows us, my hopes are, to be able to focus more on, because we're about a month and a half running late back on reports. So I feel like this will help us to stay on task, but it by no means does it pinpoint. It will still create the report to where we decide what's the next step.
And that was an issue that I think some of our landlords raised a couple years ago, that by the time they were getting word of things, it was too late. It was either shut off or a lien. So you're saying that'll help resolve some of that issue.
And it does. We'll still follow the very intricate process that we have. They'll still get their notice of letters, but this program actually generates the letter, whereas now that staff member creates the letter. establishes the certified mailings. This has where it will work with our CAS certified to do the certified mailings. It's going to take out a lot of steps for us. By no means does that say we're going to have free time, because we got plenty of work. That's
No, dude. Speaking of the letter, one of the letters that was in the process, was in here, said if the balance was not paid by a certain date, then the lien would be filed. And then it indicates that they need to pay the lien processing fee. I thought maybe that was a little confusing if you look at that letter.
They won't, the only time there's any
It is
lien
af-
fee is if we file.
Right.
Then that fee is added
Yeah.
onto their lien, where we collect it with the lien, when the lien's paid. So you're referencing the
There's a lien,
information
yeah,
not
lien,
filled out yet?
right, lien warning notice.
It's gonna be a learning task
Yeah.
for Diana and the gal that does this. But yeah, we'll make sure that we still follow the process and there's no fees added.
Right. I'm just saying if they don't read, if they pay by, say it says here 11/15/2022, they need to pay $120.96. After that, $15 is going to be added, but then, if you just look at the bottom and say, how much do I need to pay, it indicates I have to pay $135.96, which is the $15
So you're
added
saying,
on.
yeah, I get
So people might
Get
look at that and think well, I assume the $15 then just,
And he just did
Goes into
this
their
at, he being the gentleman we work with at Fry, just gave examples, because our fee's actually $50, so. But yeah, we'll make sure the steps are
yeah, that,
properly followed.
and that
it's
people
not-
can, I guess, make sure they understand it. But I mean, anything, I think that would help streamline the
Yeah.
billing process.
It will help the staff also, because it does get very confusing. We've got to rely on the county right now to log in and see in their beacon if a lien's been filed, to differentiate us and like the weed liens, because they all look like similar because of their city. This will help the staff very easily see, we have X amount of liens on this property, or this letter was sent on X date and they have till, it will streamline our process immensely.
And it's interesting how much goes through the lien process that you go through. This year, already $85,000.
We've had success, though, with the liens.
yeah.
Now, we have the downfall when something sells on tax sale or sheriff sale. And I'm not really confident that this module will help us with that, but they're working to see how we could do it, run it that way.
Questions or-
I do, the liens are collected through taxes, is that correct? Property taxes?
Yes.
And so that's why the success rate's so high, probably, up until, looks like 2022. We didn't collect like 20% of it, but is that because there's an accounting thing catch up, or?
No.
That was quite a bit that we didn't collect in 2022.
And when we were running some information before on this, and I talked to the lady at the county, if you look how many tax and sheriff sales they had then, because they were behind because of COVID.
Okay.
And so I think that's
That's
what
the
hit
reason
us
for
so
that
hard,
number.
because we lose everything,
Yeah.
and they collect, the taxes come before us. So,
Okay.
and when you sell at sheriff and tax sales, they don't get what the homes are worth, so we very rarely collect. Yeah, we only get settlement twice, that's from the tax, and then if you don't pay these liens, you get a penalty on your taxes, which I believe is like 10%. So it's encouraging when they get the
Yeah.
liens to pay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
President Miller,
Yes, Mr.
I make
Steen?
a motion to approve addendum number 1 to contract 117-2023 with Donald R. Fry and Company for the software for involving the lien process at sanitation.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second to approve addendum number 1 to contract 117-2023 with Donald R. Fry for the software for the lien process. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item of business is the recommendation to award the bid for the 2023 lining project to Miller Pipeline.
Yes, Madam President and Board, we received 4 bids at our last meeting for this 2023 CIPP lining project. And if you remember, the way we do these projects, we have a budgeted amount, and we award it to the contractor who can do the most for that amount of money. And so we usually try to include a few more items than what we think will likely get awarded to make sure we can do as much as we can through the contract. And it was actually pretty close this year. If you go down through the bid tabulation, the lines in yellow are the lines that could be done for the budgeted amount for each company. But Miller Pipeline was able to do the most for that budgeted amount. And so it's our recommendation to award a contract to Miller Pipeline of Indianapolis, Indiana, as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the 2023 sewer lining project for a total not to exceed price of $335,884.10. And we are awarding lines 1 through 44 of the bid as part of this contract.
Any questions or comments?
It's just a good way to do it. I think.
Yeah?
I don't think there's
Understand
any,
this week.
everybody's always, nobody else does it this way, and I don't know.
As long as you're not picking and choosing.
Right, we felt like
You're
this
doing
is.
1 through 44.
Right, right, yep.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
President Miller,
Yes, Mr. Bakshi?
motion for recommendation to award bid for 2023 lining project to Miller Pipeline as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to award the bid for the 2023 sewer lining project to Miller Pipeline of Indianapolis. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to miscellaneous. Is there any other business to be brought before the board today? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned, and I will turn it over to President Steens for the Stormwater Board.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Richmond Sanitary District Stormwater Management Board meeting. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes from October 24th, 2023.
I'd like to propose an approval of minutes from October 24th, 2023 as presented.
I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the October 24th, 2023 meeting as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next on the agenda is the approval of invoices for check date run October 20th, 27th, and November 3rd of 2023.
President Steens, I'd like to make a motion to approve invoices from check dates October 20th, 27th, and November 3rd of 2023 totaling $40,035.98, with a significant invoice to Cooley Contracting LLC of $32,117.84.
I'll second.
A motion is second to approve invoices for check date run October 20th and 27th and November 3rd of 2023, totaling $40,035.98. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is miscellaneous. Does anyone have anything? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn,
So move.
Second.
and we're adjourned.
Thank you.